Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon in Sagittarius that we have either on the 12th or 13th of December 2023, depending of course where you are on the planet. This new moon takes place at around 20 degrees and 40 minutes of the sign of Sagittarius. So one of its major and most important aspects is that it will hold a conversation of tension, a square with Neptune from fellow mutable sign Pisces, and another conversation which is a little bit even more exact. It is also going to be holding a quincunx with Uranus from the sign of Taurus. Now, these two aspects add a lot of confusion to this energy. And this Sagittarius new moon can take quite a numerous number of expressions. It can play out in so very many different ways that actually predicting it or trying to at least attach a prediction of any kind to it is going to be quite difficult, especially, of course, because of the quincunx with Uranus. Now, on one hand, the quincunx is a celestial conversation which has a confusing energy. Very many times when a quincunx plays out, may it play out in the rather more negative ways, even though a quincunx is not an easy celestial conversation in any shape and form, yet still it can have like more intense negative expression, like the really, really not pleasant surprises from life, that which we really didn't see coming, but it's inconvenient. Like, let me just give you an example. When you get a text message or phone call or whatever that someone very dear to you is in the hospital and you really, really, really didn't see that coming because there was no logical correlation. Now, that usually is like a typical Mercury quincunx, or it can be any other planet, but it's when you didn't see it coming, it's inconvenient, and yet it kind of changes the situation quite in a drastic way. But it can also have more pleasant expressions where the uncertainty, the surprise, the unexpected is there, but it leaves either a humorous expression where we smile about, we laugh. It can also be like a divine humor, for example, but it can also be, where the inconvenience or the frustration or the shock factor is there, but it quickly leads to something that we are grateful for, or something ultimately fated, or us figuring out something gets us in a much better position, let's say. Now, these are one of the most positive or benevolent, if that even makes sense, expressions of quincunxes. So where I want to go with this is that quincunx, by its very nature, has an element of unexpected and surprise, awkwardness, weirdness, randomness, all of these possible attached to it. But then who holds the quincunx? Exactly, Uranus. A very, very chaotic energy in itself. Uranus is basically the planet of surprises. As my favorite astrologer Nadia Shah used to say, with Uranus, expect the unexpected, or whatever you expect and anticipate. Well, chances are it's definitely not that, but something totally surprising that is going to play out. So these two energies together really make it surprising, really make it extraordinarily difficult to predict, to anticipate, to actually attach a more fixed meaning to it. But of course, on the other hand, all we have to do is look at the energy, a mutable, fire mutable energy of Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius loves surprises. Sagittarius loves the unexpected, the unexplored. Sagittarius is very adventure driven, or at least it has a very strong side. So this even amplifies the energy of Uranus in that sense. But if we understand the energy, if we understand what the alchemy, or better said, what the divine blueprint and imprint, because this is a new moon after all. So it is promoting a new beginning, or it is promoting a kind of creation, or at least transformation. So whenever we have a new moon, well, usually that energy represents a certain kind of change, or a new, or an evolution. So these energies are very, very important, because if we understand what they wish to do and how they act in an alchemical, or let's say esoteric way, then we don't even necessarily have to um, predict it, because we are understanding of what exactly is going on in a larger sense around us. So let's get into it. Here on my screen, you can see the conjunction of the sun and moon in Sagittarius, hence the new moon. And then we have the square with Neptune. And this is what I'm going to be analyzing first of all, because I find this the most important. Why? Well, it is because this Pisces energy and Sagittarius energy, even though they are so different in everything, basically, they do have some common things. And one of that common thing is subjectivity, and ultimately it is based on faith or belief, or our higher understanding of everything, basically. For example, for Sagittarius, it is more like our higher understanding in a rather exploration way, philosophically speaking. We are trying to make sense of life, or whatever principles, or the universe, or a specific subject, or whatever, but we're trying to make sense using all aspects of our being, because this is also a little bit our mind, because there has to be some kind of logical correlation with Sagittarius, not necessarily empirical, but there has to be something, at least custom or tradition, or a previous understanding. But then there is also emotion, because we are also animated by loving the principle and achieving certain kind of philosophical, or religious, or spiritual, or just academic desires. But then there is a little bit of willpower as well, because we have to explore, we have to research. There is a little bit of Saturnian expression as well, because we do have to be serious and committed to this. So that's why, for example, Sagittarius, the opposite of Gemini, likes to analyze and look at life from a very multi-dimensional perspective, just like higher education, just like university, basically, where it takes a domain and it really breaks it down to its smaller and even larger components, and its unison gives the big picture. Now, as I said, the opposite, Gemini is just the lower mind. Our immediate perception and understanding is much more important. So Gemini is very much more down to earth, strictly rational, because it has to make like proper sense, earthly sense. Sagittarius is the higher octave, so it doesn't have to make like just earthly sense. As long as it makes sense in spirit, it is absolutely fine. Hence, religion. That is why Sagittarius governs religion, for example. Now, Pisces, on the other hand, is also very subjective. It is also very much linked to faith and belief, and a very alternative understanding and perception of the world, especially because it's inner perception. We understand it and perceive it through an extremely subjective, through an extremely personal lens. So Pisces is all about our spiritual journey. Even when it's an external journey, that external journey is given sense and animated by something deeply internal. You know what I mean? When you're on a pilgrimage, on the way it's external, absolutely, but it is very much the inner GPS and the inner lived states that are the essence of it. You know what I mean? The external just meets you halfway. So that might be very, very Piscean. And Pisces is very much empowered because Neptune, the ruling planet, is at home, and Saturn, the planet which makes it much more real than it's comfortable, is also in the sign of Pisces. So basically, the sign of Pisces, it's like under I'm not sure how you call those devices, like those hydraulic pressers or something like that, where on one hand there is Saturn, then there is Neptune, and they're pressing it together until Saturn will start to progress much further into the very heart of Pisces. Because right now it's still at 1 degree 47 minutes at the time of this new moon. So it hasn't done that much progress yet. So exactly what I say, the pressure, the hydraulic pump, or however you call that machine. So Pisces, the energy and the expression of Pisces is really amplified during this period. So again, this is like a sense of urgency to figure out what belief, what faith, what spirit, what our presence in this earth, this dimension, this life, this incarnation, all of it kind of means to us, at least how we feel about it in a very, very honest way. So if we have at least that, then we are, working actively and quite harmoniously with this energy of Neptune and Saturn simultaneously in Pisces. But you see where this great deal of subjectivity and what stuff, Pisces, spiritual stuff or moral stuff, inner psychological stuff, our own past, our own being means to us. Then we have Sagittarius, what life, what the great principle, what our connection with the divine, what knowledge means to us personally. So both of these are so very subjective. And then there is this square where it is a conversation of friction. So this is not very easy. This is stressful. This is motivating us in a really harsh, let's say, manner to figure ourselves out, basically. Because, as I said earlier, this energy can be translated to so very many external or very concrete things, yet the essence of it, the core of it, is still us trying to under this energy. I do believe the right wording for this would be to be aligned with our most authentic faith, with our most authentic belief system, even if it's not well organized, even if it's not very, how should I say, systematic. If we are aligned with something that feels like strong truth to us, and it's, of course, one of the key elements here, it has to be healthy. Because if it is fanatic, if it is blind conviction, if it is just because this book or whatever said so, just because it is rooted in tradition, that is not healthy. And chances are that is exactly what this energy is targeting. That is exactly what this energy goes against. That is what it is trying to demolish. It is actually, but quincunx again with Uranus, inviting us to feel freely. It is inviting us to have the courage, have the daring, have also the audacity to believe in ourselves that we can get connected to the divine mind and that can speak to us personally, to the person not really collectively or generally, but to the person. And that is where we discover our deeper faith, our healthier faith, our more pure faith. And again, going back to the square with Neptune also at this time of this new moon, is just barely direct. It hasn't even moved all that much. So it is pretty much very, very slow, not standing still, but neither moving yet. So very powerful. This is what I want to say. And a powerful Neptune, especially direct. It is like a jet stream of water. You know, that is, if you know, there's those carpet and rug cleaning companies which use very, 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 very high pressure water. So high pressure that if you put your finger to the stream, it will break it, you know? So, but it's just water, yet still the force of it, the power of it, that's Neptune. When it is the strongest, it can wash away, dissolve, or let's say steam out everything. You know, Neptune can take care of the toughest stains and misaligned belief or certain elements of belief that do no longer serve us are definitely now targeted by this energy. And us going with the flow actually leads us to that new element, to the greater authenticity, for an old misaligned belief to leave an empty place, and that empty place within us to be very quickly filled up by our greater authenticity. Because chances are, whatever that quincunx to Uranus is, as uncomfortable at, or as delightful, why not, as it may play out, as intensely as it may play out, perhaps this is the better wording, well, it will still evoke, provoke, or cause us to, one way or another, uh, look inside of us and see an authenticity that is so striking that we have no, perhaps, other choice but to embrace it, to resonate with it, to believe it. So this Neptune, and when I say belief, it's not necessarily religious one. Anything that we are convinced of, spiritual subject or not, is in the realms of knowledge and belief. So this is exactly what this Neptune is targeting. Hence why the pressure washer has to be so intense, because it targets certain beliefs and outdated knowledge, perhaps, false knowledge even perhaps, that is strongly crystallized in there. So it has to dissolve it out. It really has to wash it out. Now, basically, this is the imprint of the energy, but this can play out in a very melancholic way, in a very tearful way, in a very emotional storm way, because that is the nature of Pisces. And very many times Neptune in Pisces, especially the third decan, where it is now, is the undoing of the self. So we may have to say goodbye to a part of us, who was rooted, who was comfortable, who was clinging to the security of a certain belief system or knowledge. But whatever is changing with this mutable energy, the best we can do is actually try and go with the flow. Not in an ultimate way, because that is also not very okay. Because we do need to have and try our hardest to have a certain equilibrium, a sense of balance. Because if we just mindlessly and blindly go with the flow, well, that flow can tear us apart. So we do, again, going back to the beginning of this recording, healthy, what healthy means to us personally. So we have to make sure that this process remains healthy. So excesses should really not be allowed to take over the process, if that makes sense. And this excess is, what is this excess? Well, this can be something surreal, really positive, because a square between Sagittarian energy and Neptune in Pisces, it can go both ways. The excess can be both ways, but something that is basically way too positive, way too good to be true, well, chances are that leads to a disappointment. As high as we go, the lower we have to fall. So again, if something is so promising, so positive, way too good to be true, I'm not saying not to believe it, but to embrace it as a potential, as a possibility, and allow it to play out until it reaches its final form. So don't expect it to remain as fantasistic, as positive as it first appears. So allow it to transform, or let me just say this, allow it to go through the Mercury retrograde season until 1st of December, but really until the end of December. January, because Mercury retrograde ends on the 1st of January. So I'm speaking about January. Because at the time of this new moon, Mercury is in shadow, standing still in the sky, just a few hours away from going retrograde. So that bears a very powerful signature. So chances are it will be this Mercury retrograde season that refines whatever this new moon brings up in our lives. But going back to where I was, when it's too good to be true, well, that can lead to a massive disappointment. That's why stay balanced. But this can also be true with the other side of the spectrum. When something is all doom and gloom, melancholy, depression, sinking, drowning, there is no way out. And of course, like, if it has something to do with a belief, with faith, we can imagine that when it breaks, that's how it feels like. So of course we feel drowned, we feel like total doom and gloom, because our hope, our healthy hope, a hope that was rooted in, as again, knowledge or a strong belief, just shattered. So of course it's not positive, but again, we have to stay disciplined and take it as it is, not allow it neither to blind us with some fantasy, false hope, but neither to take a situation and judge it as total doom and gloom. That's it, it's the end. We need to be patient and allow this energy to evolve into its final stage. So this is what this square with Neptune does in its highest expression. It gives us the chance to distill our purest faith, our healthiest faith. And when we have this resonance that, yes, I figured this out, or yes, I'm feeling it, yes, my gut or my intuition or my higher knowledge or whatever finally has a certain kind of clarity, your own unique personal way, even if it's just inner clarity, that's when we have this energy of the new moon, in working condition. That's when we're actually having it in our lives, and we did something really, really good with the square. But the most negative expression of the square is, of course, when we are washed away by the tides. In a positive sense or negative sense, either way, we will not do ourselves any good by drowning in any kind of deeper feeling than it actually is. So we also have to keep ourselves grounded emotionally. Of course, tears and emotions will be the case, and we have to allow them to be felt and to be, for us to be aware of them, but not for them to, drown us or even to control this, because we have to be in, or at least try our hardest to be at least on the floating line. You know what I say? At least to float with this energy. But of course, it is not just the sun and the moon, their conjunction, that is the only expression of the energy. We also have to look at other planets, even those who do not speak with this new moon directly, because the imprint they leave also matters quite a lot. And one of these planets is Mars, who at the time of this new moon holds a trine. So that's a really, really good news with Chiron in its own sign, own ruling sign of Aries. And Chiron himself is standing still in the sky, or very extraordinarily slow, because it will also go direct in December. So this is also an amplified Chiron. So whatever happens, distills in faith, in principle, in knowledge under this new moon. Well, you can imagine that it is very profoundly healing, or it leads to healing. And this is where healthy faith, healthy knowledge, healthy understanding, and dissolving the old, outdated ones is so profoundly healing. And this healing is empowered by this Mars's trine with Chiron, because Mars is planet of action and the activator, and it is quite comfortable and powerful in fire sign, like its own nature, Sagittarius. So this is one of the really, really positive aspects in the sky that actually doesn't just tell us that this is what we should do, this we should follow these and these guidelines, but this basically pushes us towards healing. It kind of makes sure it or at least it will attempt its maximum, that however this new moon plays out for us, both individually and collectively, of course, and collectively there is masses, oceans of healing needed right now after all what happened. So yeah, that we're actually getting some healing experience after this. And when our principles, our worldview, our faith, our belief system, or our knowledge, our higher knowledge and understanding heals, that's when it feels like our journey through life is that much more healing, or we are definitely on a healing journey. Now, another planet that makes an interesting conversation is Venus. Venus at this time is in the sign of Scorpio. So she means business. She's not her idealistic Libra self, neither her very, very open and, unconditionally welcoming Taurian self, but she's Scorpio, She is intense, she means business, she looks at everything with a rather critical eye, and this is where her instinctual feelings cannot be overridden or deceived. No, in Scorpio, Venus wants to get what she wants the way she wants it. But of course, she opposes Jupiter, and Jupiter is in actually her home sign of Taurus. So this energy, this opposition between Venus and Jupiter, well, immediately says that whatever emotions are going to run under this new moon, they're going to be expanded, they're going to be amplified, especially if we have some unfulfilled desires. Scorpio, like, for example, sensual, sexual, in nature, because this area cannot be ignored right now, because that is so much so in the repertoire of Scorpio, or anything financial, debt, value, Venus. But in the sign of Scorpio, it's where we really, really feel it, and we're very serious about it. So any need like this, or any unfulfilled want, desire, or situation is going to feel that much more intense. It's going to bother us, let's say, that much more. But how should I say? We do have a Uranus quincunx. So surprise, surprise. Maybe for some people, it's not actually the bother, but it is going to be a very strong attraction or some kind of that feels almost like an obsession that will pull on them. So for some people, it's actually not unfulfilled desire, but a desire that is so strong that it's just going to pull them in a direction. But you can see from this how it goes hand in hand with a big lesson in one's faith and principles and your own inner wisdom and intuition. You can see how a strong attraction or even a powerful need is gonna catalyze a major spiritual lesson. Another aspect that actually Venus is part of is a sextile. So this is quite a harmonious conversation with Mercury. Now, what this means is, and I repeat, Mercury at this moment is standing still in the sky, so stationary, preparing to go retrograde. So it is a very, very powerful, it is a very, how should I say, like highlighted. The spotlight is on Mercury, energetically speaking, and then Venus in Scorpio. So again, a rather atypical Venus. This is a Venus who has intensity. This is a Venus who is not just her usual magnetic self, like in the sign of Taurus, but in the sign of Scorpio, it's like electromagnetic self, where it's not the natural magnetism. It is magnetism amplified by a tiny bit of desire, want, obsession, kink, or lust, or whatever, or a crisis situation. Why not? So this, but the sextile ultimately means that having the courage and having the maturity, Capricorn, an initiatory energy, and then Scorpio, a receptive energy. But a receptive energy who, of course, receives because it has the singularity and the magnetism, if you know what I mean. So this is where dealing with whatever we have in our lives with heart, Venus, with mind as well, Mercury, is gonna get us to all the right places, all the right truths, all the right states. But we do need to take this in a way seriously, but not that seriously. So we do need measure, a tiny bit of measure and balance in order to turn this energy into something truly positive, because we can do that. That is the good thing about Neptune squares, that we always have a choice. It doesn't have to drown us. Tears may fall and we may feel emotional, but that can very quickly turn into a power, an empowerment. That can actually be a very, very good thing if we know how to manage it and we know how to stay in control. And moving on, so this Venus and Mercury sextile is really, really good to figure things out, really, and to go with the flow and to keep in balance. This is like the saving grace. But there isn't just major astrological aspects that determine the signature of this energy. There are also some minor celestial conversations that are they may not be as strong, they may not be as influential in a fated way, so to speak. They may not really move the hand of fate, but they will add to our mood quite intensely. So I do feel the need to mention these. So one of these minor conversations, it is actually the sun and moon. So the conjunction of the sun and moon holding it with Jupiter. And we are speaking about a sesquiquadrate, so a square and a half. And I do believe that this is quite important because Jupiter is the ruler actually of this new moon, because Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius. And if we even want to complicate it more, Jupiter is the co-ruler of Pisces. So, you know, it has a lot of influence. Now, before I actually get into this energy, I would just like to speak about these minor astrological conversations and how we have to really take these, how to interpret them. Now, we all know that a square is a challenge. And if, depending on what we do with that challenge, how we manage it, of course, sometimes it feels like it defeated us. But most times, as we struggle, as we face the situation, and give the best from what we can, from our abilities, from our coping, we become stronger and stronger, and then ultimately the challenge turns into a blessing. So this is where this typical square is, when a challenge, when a provocation, when a hardship actually leads to a greater step towards evolution. Now, a square and a half, so a sesqui-square, a sesqui-quadrate, has to take a little bit of that square energy. So there is a challenge, there is an inconvenience there. There is something that we either have to figure out or face or have control. Of course, this depends on the situation. But a sesqui-square is quite positive because it gets into the motivation, it gets into determination. We actually focus on the goal, on the end result, much more than on the negativity and on the hardship. So when I say a square and a half, so a sesqui-square, that even though there is the challenge there or the inconvenience, it is quite motivating. It is quite moving. We don't even want to give up. It is where you are, let's say you're playing a computer game or anything, and you intentionally set it to hard difficulty because that's the challenge you want to experience. So it's quite, manageable. But there is another celestial conversation, a semi-square, so a half square, which again has to take on the expression of the square, which is the challenge, the friction, the inconvenience, or whatever. But the semi-square is where we are not smiling anymore, where it is a frustration, where it is a challenge that annoys us. It is more like even like just the sesqui-quadrate, it is purely psychological. But with the sesqui-quadrate, as I said, we don't mind the hard difficulty. With the semi-square, well, it's so frustrating that we just want to quit the game. You know what I mean? Like, let me give you an example, and I'm so very sorry for this mini astrology lesson. Let's take a square. You are walking your dog in the park, and then it starts to rain, it's already thundering, and your dog doesn't want to go home. This is the square. Now, let's turn it into a sesquiquadrate. The same scenario, but you have a friend with you and you make a joke out of it. You just grab your dog into your arms and run home in the rain, and everyone's happy. It turned to be an adventurous experience. No one minds you got wet and cold and all that. But now let's turn it into a semi-square. Your dog got into a huge puddle of mud, so you have to carry the muddy dog in your arms and quickly give both yourself and the dog a bath when you get home. And you're definitely not smiling about this. It's not funny anymore. You are so very mad. So you see, this is like the difference of the nuance. So again, back to our astrology, our new moon. So this new moon holds a sesqui-square with Jupiter, and Jupiter is the ruler as well. Now this, again, says to me what is healthy faith? Because that is Jupiter. And that healthy faith, Taurus, we are seeking for either the higher knowledge, understanding of life, the higher principle, or the healthy faith, healthy spirituality, or actually law and justice in a real secular sense. But whatever, it is meant for the long term. It is meant to truly help us and be in our lives and serve us for the long term. So this is Jupiter. This Jupiter encourages us to truly seek our most authentic faith and not really accept anymore that which only has to be true, not just because it's traditional or because something external, like an external authority, says so. This is where embrace our inner truth and seek truth within and from within by asking directly the source. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the same Jupiter, remember, sesquiquadrate, also says, but don't exaggerate. Because not any fantasy and daydream and delusion that we might pick up during our journeys is actually reality and real, you know? So sometimes even the doubts, sometimes even, is this actually true or does it make sense, have their utility. Now, another energy, a minor energy, is that Venus at this moment is going to be holding a sesquiquadrate, so the same type of celestial conversation, with Neptune. So again, Neptune and Venus, they are each other's octaves. Neptune the higher, Venus the lower. They're all about, feelings and emotions. What is true, what is not true. Because Neptune can come with certain ideals and principles that you or we, let's say, cannot fault. The biggest truths, like the Christ consciousness, like unconditional love, like we are all one. The universe, the divine is one singular organism. We're part of it, experiencing its blah. I don't want to say blah blah because these are actually sacred principles, but you get what I mean. Big truths that we cannot even fault, That's Neptune. But that Venus in Scorpio is, in which degree is this applicable in my personal life? And which of these big truths do I align with in spirit? Because the universe is multifaceted, multidimensional. The universe is both the predator and the prey. The universe is both peace and war. You know what I mean? So we actually have to align with something, not just for the sheer truth of it, that our minds or our heart agrees with it, but we also have to find something of it within us in an embodied way. Because, for example, going back to Jupiter in Taurus, we have to embody our faith because that's when it's real and that's when it gets expanded. And last but not least, another minor conversation, but this is like a dragon chili, if you know what I mean, really spicy. Mars holding a semi-square with its, higher octave, Pluto. So yes, it is not a very, very easy energy because this is warlike, this is aggressive, this is a bit bullying. Not that we are necessarily bullying, but whatever is going on around us. And for example, how centralized power, Pluto in Capricorn, company, government, big corporation, big everything, the bosses, the leaders, the system, how it tries to solve problems. Well, all of us might be a victim to it. You know what I mean? So this is the frustration. This is the anger. This is that I do not agree with it. Why do they have all the power? What can I do? Again, chances are, in a classical way, nothing. but exactly it is a Sagittarius new moon that shows you where the true power lies, in faith, in belief, and that reality is really what we make of it through our belief. Now, after this long philosophy and alchemical speech being over, let us just take a couple of possible expressions. I know I said that because of Uranus, it's really not susceptible to prediction, but let's say a couple of ideas. Well, on one hand, Sagittarius, new moon, and Uranus, technology, aviation. So this is where some new technology is definitely going to show itself, something revolutionary, something maybe so new that we don't even know what to make of it yet, the confusion with the quincunx Uranus. And this is also cosmological discoveries, news, astronomical discoveries of new stars or new kind of phenomenon. This can also be space news, even extraterrestrial news if you want to look at. Well, actually, this isn't even a controversial thing anymore because it's all over like mainstream media. So yeah, actually, that is definitely going to be part of the picture. Also, this is where legislation is definitely going to be debated. The fact that it will change, that's not even a question. But as it changes, there are going to be big, 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 big debates. It is really going to be dissected. The legal system, internationally or nationally, or even justice and fairness and law in our lives, our own personal even, is definitely going to be on fire because there are going to be strong activities with that. Now, this can also represent quite personally speaking, individually speaking. Of course, depends on where this 20 degrees of Sag falls into your personal chart. Like, for example, a long distance travel, invitation to a foreign country, or any kind of place and land that just calls for you, calls for your soul, like a pilgrimage or a spiritual journey. It can play out like that. Now, the inconvenience or the more negative part, how do I do it? When do I do it? Resources, money, where do I find what I need? All of these things. But it can also be something that you do in a court of justice, because Mercury will retrograde back to Sagittarius, and Mercury is the paperwork and the communication and the back ping pong of the legal system back and forth. Like papers, this can be also starting something new, like a new study, deciding to go to I don't know, faculty, university, to take something much more seriously that you want to learn. But this can also represent sheerly finding a way to use studies, a diploma, a degree, knowledge that you already have. Or this is where you want to up your game and you will go study further something that you're already practicing or are good at. So this can play out in so very many different ways. The fact that Mars is behind this new moon, so quite in their vicinity, means that it's also action oriented, so Mars intensifies this just by being in the sign of Sagittarius, quite close to this new moon. For some astrologers it's even a valid conjunction, so Mars is signature of action, and a little bit of heated decision making or contemplation is definitely there. So besides these, practical elements, this can also be, as I said, a very strong healing energy because of Neptune. Even if the process is uncomfortable, Neptune, as I said, washes away. It dissolves. It tends to drown, but that is what we must not allow, not to actually suffocate us. So this is how, with this balance, with our own mutable adaptability, making sure that we always get the best of the square. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be sorrowful, disillusioning, disappointing, our hearts breaking because our deepest faith broke. It doesn't have to be like that at all. We just need to embrace a tiny bit of wisdom to make the best of this energy. And last but not least, let's remember the Chiron trine. And if we even want to see it in a way more positive way, well, then this new moon actually holds a pretty tight trine. So a conversation of supreme harmony with Aries and the North Node in the sign of Aries. So again, I have to say, even if this might have difficulties, emotional, spiritual, legal, or whatever, this will definitely be serving our greatest good, because this energy wants us to get aligned to our inner truth, our deeper faith, because when we're aligned to that, we're like a generator, basically. We cannot be stopped. And trying to Aries, a battering ram. This is where we march forward and no gate, no wall, nothing can stop us. Of course, no, let's not do this in the fanatic, blind, foolish, aggressive, selfish way. No, 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 no. We need to be wise and but the signature of the energy, it gets us forward, it catapults us. So we are really advised to go with the flow and see where the cleansing of our deepest faith takes us under this energy. So I would like to leave it at this. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the love, all the support. Thank you for everyone who helped me. If you'd like to support my channel, you can like and share, and you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Again, thank you so much, everyone, and wishing you a blessed and quite magical, because it is going to be magical, new moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So until next time, bye for now.